welcome to my Women's Health series. Today, I'm going to be investigating what happens to the brain during and after pregnancy. To start with, I'm going to talk to the public. Let's see what they have to say. So, my question is, what can you tell me about the changes in a woman's brain during and after pregnancy?
Oh my God.
Well, I'm not a neurologist.
I've heard that pregnancy brain is a thing.
There's a neuroplasticity factor to it.
I think the brain is stressed.
And general, anxiety of completely new circumstances.
Personalities probably changed and their focus on their lives changed.
Things happen, but I don't really know what they are, and I don't know how much of it is sexist stereotypes or women being oh, I've got pregnancy brain because they're sleeping shit.
Just seen this process in my sister-in-law, but I don't really think she did have stuff like that. I think it's more like a stereotype, but definitely stuff like nesting and being really prepared and changing stuff, I guess, but in ways of thinking differently.
Okay, that was really interesting. People had a few ideas. I wonder if baby brain is an actual thing. I'm now going to speak to an expert on the woman's brain, Dr. Sarah Mackay. She is a neuroscientist and a science communicator. Let's see what she has to say. So what happens to the brain during and after pregnancy?
There's very similar changes that take place during pregnancy as take place during adolescence, in that we see regions of grey matter kind of getting slightly thinner as they kind of streamline and refine their connections. A lot of that change is driven by these enormously high levels of estrogen, and in fact it's one of the most large and obvious structural changes that we see in any adult brain. You can see a 4% volume change in the brains of women if we scan their brain before and after their first pregnancy. And a lot of that structural change that we see is in social cognition networks and social cognition regions of cortex.
So what is that massive increase of estrogen actually doing?
We know that the hormones have driven this kind of change or opened this window of plasticity. And I suspect it's also the experiences that we have. The brain just becomes very plastic, goes into a sensitive period, or maybe even a critical period. And so, that first pregnancy is this fundamental neurological shift. So you shift socially, you shift emotionally, you shift your sense of self and identity.
It sounds a bit like a metamorphosis.
It is a metamorphosis. And that is why the word matrescence is so incredibly important. It's this process that begins and it goes through pregnancy, but then it carries on because your brain has been changed to focus in on this new human, almost to it's like your entire attention is consumed by them. And it's so exhausting, but you can't, your body and every cell in your body kind of responds to their cry. It's almost more painful watching your child cry or be hurt than it is when you yourself are.
Do you think you could tell me a bit about what happens with postnatal depression?
It's very hard to tease out the shifts in hormones from the experience of childbirth, from the lack of sleep, from the sense of self. It's almost like a perfect storm. And we know one of the greatest protective factors and also greatest vulnerabilities is social support. And I know there's a research study underway here with one of my colleagues here in Sydney. She recently published work, or at least I heard her say at a medical conference, that 100% of women after they have their first baby have these intrusive thoughts, these catastrophic thoughts. Your mind is just filled with, particularly in the first days or weeks after you've given birth, something terrible happening to your baby. And some researchers are now sort of starting to really focus in on that intrusive catastrophic thoughts because they typically fade away. But if they don't, then that's a real risk factor for postnatal anxiety and depression as well, when those catastrophic thoughts start to interfere with your daily life. But no one talks about them. It's really interesting, but everyone's had them.
Could you tell me about baby brain, this idea that women get a sort of cognitive decline during or after pregnancy? Is that a real thing?
If you ask women, say, during pregnancy or in early motherhood, do you have baby brain? Well, 4 out of 5 women will put their hand up and say yes. But when we bring those women into the research lab and we do cognitive testing, we're not picking up any problems whatsoever. And so there's a researcher, Winnie Orchard, and she wanted to interrogate that paradox. And she found that there was some really strong correlations with just this overall sense of well-being, with social isolation, with feeling like they weren't coping, with the mental load, the kind of cognitive load of motherhood, lack of sleep, poor mental health. Many women forget stuff. They blame their brain. They go, it's just me and my mumsy baby brain. It's not her brain letting her down. It's this world that she's trying to function in as a new mother. And there's some other cool research that's looked at some cognitive test scores which actually get better during pregnancy.
It sounds like the brain goes through some profound changes during and after pregnancy. Also, it sounds like baby brain is more to do with how much new mothers are juggling rather than any problems with their actual brain. Pretty interesting stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll catch you next time.